Good evening. Jamaica recorded 5 additional COVID-19 deaths yesterday, taking the total of deaths to 322. One additional case was recorded as a coincidental death, increasing that figure to 51. Those who have died are a 66-year-old male from St. Anne, a 67-year-old female from St. Catherine, an 80-year-old female from St. James, an 82-year-old female from Kingston and St. Andrew, and an 85-year-old male from Kingston and St. Andrew. Meanwhile, there were 63 new cases ranging in age from 1 to 84 years, taking the total of cases to 13,915 with 1,841 active cases. Now, of the new cases, 25 are males and 38 are females. In the meantime, there were 24 additional recoveries, taking that total to 11,592. 95 persons are currently hospitalized, 10 of whom are moderately ill and 9 critically ill. 23 persons are in government quarantine, while 25,478 are at home. Now, while the Ministry of Health and Wellness continues to assess the degree of the spread of COVID-19 over the holiday season, the government of Jamaica has announced an extension of the island-wide curfew and all other previously announced measures under the Disaster Risk Management Act until Sunday, January 31, 2021. The island-wide curfew hours will therefore remain in place, commencing at 10 p.m. and ending at 5 a.m. each day. All other measures, including the prohibition on parties and events, the public gathering limit of 15 persons, as well as measures relating to travel, burials, and weddings, are unchanged and will remain in effect until the end of January. Now, following the concerns regarding St. Anne and Manchester expressed by Dr. Tufton, he stated that the ministry alerted the island to the current assessment of the parishes of St. Anne and Manchester, where there are signs of the increased spread of the virus. Also, the health departments in both parishes have already begun to boost prevention measures with testing and contact tracing, especially for the vulnerable population. In the meantime, the Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, earlier today handed over antigen testing kits to the private laboratories that have been recently approved by the ministry and its regional partner, the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO. The handing over of the test kits will boost the country's capacity as the demand for COVID-19 testing increases. Minister Tufton, in his remarks, pointed out the importance of public and private sector partnership in the COVID-19 response as a country, even amidst countries requiring testing prior to travel.
This is another case of us working together as a team, as a country, in order to protect our population, whether our locals or those who visit with us. In recent weeks, we would have heard from our significant partners, country partners, the UK, Canada, and the United States, announcements around travel restrictions linked to a requirement for testing for persons who are going to travel to those jurisdictions. It is a fairly significant development. It's an understandable development, and so I'm in no way, shape, or form being critical for those decisions that have been made by those jurisdictions. Their first obligation is to protect their population. So that requirement, which was placed out there by at least 2 of those 3 jurisdictions, the UK and Canada, for PCR testing for re-entry within 3 days, I think, before travel, is a very tall order and would be a tall order for most, if not all. Nevertheless, we have to build the capacity as best as possible and see the opportunity in that requirement. And that's how we have to position and posture.
Dr. Tufton further cautioned persons to not be critical of other countries' restrictions and protocols in demanding testing, as Jamaica is one such country that also had our own restrictions in an effort to protect residents from the virus.
Those jurisdictions are doing what we had done. And so we can't be critical of it because we understand what drives it, what motivates it. Having said that, it poses a challenge for us because what it would mean if persons traveling to those jurisdictions require tests of one form or another is that they are going to require the availability of those tests here in Jamaica in order to access those destinations. The challenge there, because we do offer tests, as you know, is that the numbers, given that these are our main trading partners, are significant. And indeed, as I have said publicly, to some extent, it was and would have been impractical to expect that we could meet those requirements, certainly in the short term, and certainly that government alone could meet those requirements. The truth is we just don't have the capacity. And implicit, I think, in those announcements would be a recognition of that on all sides, and another objective, which is to slow down the movement of the traffic between countries because of the risk of COVID spread. So there was a secondary, I think, objective, which may not be explicitly stated, but is implicit in the new policies that have been announced.
The health minister further pointed out the specific test that is currently in high demand and the way that the government is partnering with the private and public sectors to ensure we eventually meet the demands.
The most extreme is the need for one particular type of test, which is the PCR test, which is considered the gold standard of tests, which requires personnel that are trained, technically trained, machinery that has to be acquired, and raw materials or reagents, as they are called, that many times are in globally short supply. Unless you have those three things, it is difficult to offer at those volumes and that level of consistency the gold standard PCR test. And indeed, I dare say that there are many countries, or hardly a country, that would be able to offer that test consistently to all the persons who demand that test. So Jamaica is not alone in that regard. Not to mention the fact that even after you have all of these ingredients, you have to get the process right. Because if the process is not achieved in terms of how you do, or you combine all of these factors, you could still get the false positives and false negatives, which clearly is not what you want as part of dealing with this virus. Now, what are we doing from a public-private partnership perspective? There are three entities that offers the PCR test. To our government, the National Public Health Lab, and the National Influenza Center, which is based at the University Hospital of the West Indies. One private entity currently, Carigen, at the university, offers the PCR test for a fee. The other two are government and is offered free on the recommendation of a doctor.
Stay tuned to Mello TV immediately following this newscast for Dr. Tufton's full presentation. Still tonight, Shadow Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Maurice Guy, PNP's General Secretary Dr. Dayton Campbell, and PNP representatives from Western Jamaica toured the Cornwall Regional Hospital in Mount Salem St. James earlier today in an effort to assess the progress of the renovations. Now, in speaking with our news team following the tour of the facility, Dr. Guy expressed his dissatisfaction that the work has been taking such a long time.
Basically, what we have seen today, as shown to us by the team from the Cornwall Regional Hospital, is the work that has been in progress for a significant period of time. What is interesting, however, is that since we last toured in December, I think it was 11th of December 2019, when we saw floors 10 and 9 being gutted, only 2 other floors have been gutted for the entire year. And what we have seen is an expenditure which basically is significant. Since the rehabilitation of Cornwall Regional, we have been told that over $4 billion have been spent. And when one looks at the budget that was presented in the Parliament for the year 2020 to 2021, there was an estimated $5+ billion more for completion of Cornwall Regional by 2023. Now, we are estimating, based on what we see and based on what has been happening, that this is probably going to come out at the end of the day about 10 to 12 billion Jamaican dollars. Our view, to rehabilitate Cornwall Regional Hospital. We are dissatisfied, as we have said repeatedly, that the work has taken so long.
The Shadow Minister of Health and Wellness questioned the energy placed into pushing the rehabilitation work to get the job done.
We have indicated publicly, we have said in the Parliament, that had Cornwall been considered an urgency, an emergency having regard to this only type A hospital in the western part of the country that caters to all the parishes in Cornwall and elsewhere. As far away as from St. Mary, people come to Cornwall Regional for treatment. If the government was really serious about it, we think that they should have used the authority of the cabinet to get emergency procurement to do Cornwall, to rehabilitate Cornwall. It is not beyond us. I think the will was not there to do it. We are not happy. In fact, we are not comforted by the fact that government says that as you pull one block, you see something else that is wrong. If a thorough investigation was done, recall, that PAHO came and gave us an opinion. I think they make 25 recommendations as to what is to be done here. UNOPS came and also made another set of recommendations. We have all of these studies. Why is it that there is no energy in wanting to push this rehabilitation?
Dr. Guy further thanked the staff at the Cornwall Regional Hospital for their work that they have been doing despite the challenges.
I want to say too that in spite of all that is happening here, I want to commend the staff who have been working here, the doctors, the nurses, the porters, everyone who works in the system, because they're working against very trying circumstances. They're working against a system which basically is working against them. But we want to thank them for their contribution to the people of this country, to the people of Western Jamaica in particular, and to say to them that we really appreciate what they have been doing, but we are totally dissatisfied in how the Minister and the Ministry of Health has approached this problem, and by extension the government of Jamaica.
The clinical coordinator at the Cornwall Regional Hospital walked our news team through the newly renovated burn unit.
I'm Dr. Delroy Frey, the clinical coordinator of the Cornwall Regional Hospital. Where we are standing is our ICE intensive care unit for our burns patient. As you can see, the room was fully equipped with all monitors, and something special here. This area I'm pointing to, it's the area that we shower our burns patient. And as you can see, it's retrofitted so that the entire bed moves over there. The patient is showered and bring back into the area to be treated. And across there is our operating room. So if the patient needs to go to theater to have any wound addressed or any debris or any eschorotomy, anything, they would be moved along with this stretcher across there. A nice flow system. And I'm hoping this will be restored, because this is a top quality service that we want to maintain for the people of Western Jamaica.
In other news tonight, with $3 billion owed by delinquent customers, the state-owned National Water Commission, NWC, is warning those in arrears that their properties could be seized to settle the sums owed. The water utility, in a statement yesterday, said it was in the process of finalizing arrangements to take legal action against customers who are indebted to it for water and sewerage services. The company said, and I quote, "Delinquent customers are therefore being warned to make arrangements to settle their outstanding debt obligations, because the NWC is empowered under the law to seize the property of those who are in arrears as a means to recover revenue that is owed in accordance with Section 21(3) of the National Water Commission Act, end quote. Now, since it embarked upon a massive disconnection drive last December, the NWC said over 3,000 customers were disconnected in all parishes. The NWC acknowledged that some customers did in fact heed the call to make arrangements to settle their obligations. However, it said there are still too many customers who refuse to take responsibility for their debt, and this irresponsible behavior is a threat to its financial viability. Meanwhile, the water utility is reminding customers who are in arrears and who have challenges settling the outstanding sums that a payment plan can be worked out with the company. Continuing with the news tonight, following the end of a curfew in the Trenchtown area due to the recent spike in shootings and murders, Senior Superintendent in charge of Western Kingston's Police Division, Michael Phipps, says a large police presence is still in the community.
We have police saturating the particular community, but the police will not be able to be at every doorstep. So we cannot expect to see the police at the doorstep of everybody, but we are satisfied with the police presence within the particular community. We have the static, we have mobile, and of course we have covert patrols within the community. So based on our assessment, we are assessing it by the hour and we are moving around the assets as based on our assessment. We are doing daily assessment of the situation across the Trenchtown space, and we hope that with our new measures that we'll implement shortly, that this will bring the sort of result that we desire for the community in terms of bringing back law and order and restoring peace to the particular area.
SSP Phipps also pointed out the origin of the violence.
What I can tell you is that we have identified a number of persons who we consider to be main players. These persons, we have spent some time to do some checks and some work around them, and we'll be going at them in a deliberate manner. We will be partnering with our JADF counterparts, and we will go in and do some activities that will necessarily bring calm to the particular area. What we are getting is that this particular feud has been going on since 2019, and what is playing out in the community is a tit for tat. The two gangs have been at each other for a little while. What you find is that you kill persons from one side, the other side avenge that particular death by killing someone or shooting someone. So what we will do from the police end is that we will seek to dominate the area and bring the sort of police presence that is necessary to restore calm to the particular community. At the same time, we are seeking to have the intervention of persons who we believe can resolve the present conflicts, but what we will do from the policing end is to ensure that all the perpetrators of the incidents of crimes in that area are pursued relentlessly.
The senior superintendent added that the police force is seeking more cooperation from residents to bring the perpetrators to justice.
What we seek really is more cooperation from the citizens, because when you go into one area, they remain very close-mouthed. They don't tell you what is it you desire to hear from them. And we know that they can assist us in a much better way than what they are doing for us. Because if you look at the second incident of murder within the community, we got full cooperation from the persons there. And as a result of that, we were able to arrest the main perpetrator within minutes of the crime. And he's in custody now and should be charged shortly. The person who killed Cynthia Robinson. Based on our information, two persons, but we have identified one, and that person was taken into custody, arrested on the same day, taken into custody, and we have a pretty good case file around the investigations regarding that matter, and we are confident that after a question and answer interview, we'll be able to lay charges against him. So that's the sort of cooperation we desire from the community. If we are getting that, we will fix most of the problems that exist there.
SSP Phipps further pointed out that some residents refuse to speak out against the violence due to the misconception that they will be protected by these criminals.
I don't think it's a trust factor there just now. what you're seeing playing out is that persons are connected to the guys who are creating the problems within the community. And they're of the opinion that those guys are there to protect them. So what they will do is to try to mislead the police, give us false information and so on, in order for us not to arrest the main perpetrators. But we have very good citizens within the community who are cooperating with us and giving us some support. And I believe that with our efforts collectively, we will be going at these persons who are creating the problems within the community. We know who they are, and we have some information, and we will be acting on those informations.
Still making the news tonight, dancehall artiste Tommy Sparta will return to court on February 3 to answer to illegal gun and ammunition possession charges. The entertainer's case was heard yesterday in the Gun Court Division of the Home Circuit Court, but he was remanded into custody. Now, it was not immediately clear if his lawyers had attempted to secure bail for the Blessings artiste. The case was heard in camera, that is, in private. Now, cases that are heard in camera most times take place in the private chambers of a judge, with the press and public excluded. Now, the DJ, who has had several run-ins with the law, is being represented by Donahue Martin, along with Queen's Counsel Tom Tavares Finson. Russell was arrested on December 14, 2020 by members of the JCF's Specialized Operations Unit after a Toyota Mark X motor vehicle in which he was traveling was intercepted along Holborn Road in St. Andrew and searched. A firearm was allegedly found in his waistband. The firearm, a 9mm pistol, also contained an extended magazine with 18 rounds of ammunition. And those are the stories making news. I am Shelley Ann Hill. We will now take a break and then join Christopher Scott with sports.